Hello, this is Paramjeet Singh. Thank you once again for stopping by. Today I want to talk about biases, especially implicit bias, the one impact our decision making substantially. And the reason why I'm interested in talking about it is not to tell you how to reduce it, at least in this conversation, but to ask or to bring you along on an exploratory thought process is that if unconscious bias is unconscious, how do you change it consciously? How do you impact its operation by having conversations about it, running workshops, having intellectual conversation, roundtable groups? Do they really help the way we think about this? And part of the reason I'm interested in this question is that this is something it's very much in vogue these days, because we are very interested in multiculturalism, diversity and inclusion. And whenever we think about these things, we always automatically think about reducing the implicit bias. We tend to think that implicit bias is one of the culprits which in fact pit people of color, disadvantage against the hiring practices and the promotional practices. But the thing I'm really interested in, and especially this is an invitation to all the individuals who work in the corporate environment, who train other people how to reduce the implicit bias, by asking very simple question. If something is unconscious, how do we reduce it consciously? Or are we just assuming that making people aware of implicit bias is going to automatically make them less biased? And if that is our assumption, then I think we should look at the research, because there are some studies to suggest that teaching people about the biases sometimes have an unintended consequence. It actually makes them a lot more biased. So the thing I want to really explore here with all the trainers and all the individuals who are interested in this, especially in the diversity and inclusion area, is there a better way that we can access the unconscious processes rather than just simply talking about it, running workshops and assuming that that is going to reduce the implicit bias, thus allowing for more diverse organizational practices. Though you can argue that by running workshops or doing all sorts kind of roundtable talks can help us reset or structure a sociological ecosystem of the organization so that it can create or cultivate those conditions which can reduce bias when people are interacting with other peoples. But because bias is so swift, within 50 to 100 milliseconds, the brain picks up two very important parts of the information, which it uses to construct a mental schema how you're going to interact with that person. And two things it picks up is the color of the skin and the gender of the person. And if somebody is biased against a skin color, or if somebody is biased against the gender, that will automatically kick into the decision making process. And because it is all unconscious, no amount of intellectual talking about is going to do any difference. So my question to you folks, people who work in this area, is there a better way reducing the implicit bias than just running workshops and having intellectual conversation? Because as the results, some of the studies suggest that it may have unintended consequences, where people have been exposed to this knowledge tends to get a lot more biased than who are not exposed to it. Because intellectual conversation can have their own limitation. Being aware and assuming that one is aware are two very different things. I think this is one of the mistakes that is being made in the terms when we begin to think that teaching about implicit bias is about reducing the implicit bias. If you work in this area and you would like to have a conversation, please do reach out. I would love to have a conversation with you. If you find this video useful, kindly consider supporting our channel by subscribing, sharing, leaving a comment. We would really appreciate. In the meantime, stay safe and well. Thank you.